I'm about to make a hot take. Wash, aka this character right here, I would say is probably more durable than Izuku and potentially Shigaraki. Now, I might be overestimating him, but there is some things that do need to be talked about when it comes to just this chapter that came out earlier today. So I want to zoom in here, okay? I want you guys to see this. So basically, if you look very closely here on this bottom, which it won't let me zoom in for some reason. I think it's had a problem there. Basically, if you zoom in, and you see this, you see where Edgeshot pulls out a bubble to be able to cleanse himself, to sterilize the thread he's using to be able to, sterilize and fix up bakugou, to be able to, mend his heart, become his heart, etc., yada, yada, yada. I'm not gonna kind of get back into my problems with that. I've already talked about that in, the previous video I made last week, so I'm not going to rehash everything I said. I still think it's bad, and my opinion probably on that is not going to change whatsoever. So let's move on, and let's talk about this chapter. Let's talk about what's going on, etc., and why I even dare to mention that Wash is apparently more durable than Izuku. I will dare say he's probably more durable than Izuku, but not as maybe durable as Shigaraki. And let me explain, okay? So, once again, we gotta read this line here. Wash was good enough to give me one of his bubbles. With this, you see the bubble right there, I shall sterilize my own body. Now, once again, from this perspective, it's like, okay, the bubble is being used to sterilize. We've seen Wash in, previous stuff. We've seen him use his bubbles, as you can see here, to be able to protect, people from Shigaraki's decay, float heavy objects up, etc. We have definitely seen his quirk in action, and so we know he could definitely clean things. I mean, literally, his quirk is called Clean Bubbler. So it's not something left field, necessarily. But there is things that do need to be talked about when it comes to this. For one, there was no mentioning prior to Wash, giving a bubble to Edgeshot. That's the first thing that needs to be talked about, okay? And that's just why does Edgeshot randomly have a bubble? Here, I'll zoom out of the page so you guys can, see the full thing. But basically, Edgeshot is beat up to high hell. He looks absolutely riddled. He's damaged. Even in the previous chapter here, I'll go to the previous chapter. I'll load that up, and I'll let you guys see it for yourself once it loads here. But you'll literally see Edgeshot at the end of this chapter highly damaged. Look at this man. He appears while Bakugou's on the ground, and you see him heavily damaged. His entire outfit, his hero suit is destroyed, tattered. You see blood coming down his face, etc. He looks absolutely messed up, and he's been basically off screen, so we don't know who did this, but obviously he took quite the beating. And so we fast forward, to the newest chapter that came out today, and when you look at, the bubble situation, which I was just talking about, how the hell did this bubble here not take any damage? That gets into my argument of durability, because I can be fine with, the whole cleansing and sterilizing. That's fine. That makes perfect sense. Wash is literally a washing machine. Okay, it's funny, but that's literally what he is. But it's you're not going to tell me that Edgeshot, that literally got the crap knocked out of him, he's bleeding, you can literally see it here, was able to carry a bubble that small, and somehow it was completely fine. He just pulls it out of his pocket, or out of his backside. He's like, here we go, here's a bubble. It's a dirty bubble, potentially, but here's a bubble to sterilize Bakugou. And I'm just okay, so let's just talk about what this necessarily means for a few things in terms of writing. There was no previously established event, I believe. Correct me if I am wrong. Please do. I would love to be wrong. But there was nothing previously establishing the fact that Edgeshot ever received a bubble from Wash. But it's not just that. Why does Edgeshot randomly have a bubble to do such a thing? Basically, yes, people are going to get injured on the battlefield, but when you're having this life or death situation, fighting someone to that extent, it's why do you have a bubble, and does the other heroes, why doesn't, Best Jeanist have a bubble? Why doesn't, Isola, aka Eraserhead, or any of the other characters have a bubble from Wash? Why does Edgeshot randomly have a bubble? That is the problem I have with that. Now, the next problem with this is that the bubble is obviously incredibly durable. It's not damaged. You can literally see, obviously, piercing damage affects the bubble, clearly, because he's able to pierce it, but it's clearly the bubble must be very durable. I mean, Edgeshot, as I've literally just shown, is heavily damaged, but he pulls out this bubble, it's completely fine. You can look at it, it looks completely fine. So let's look at, some of Wash's other feats. Basically, we see him in the previous war arc and all that. He levitates up hospital beds, etc., while the building is getting crumbled and it's getting decayed by what, Shigaraki was doing. Everything makes sense. Like, he uses his quirk to float people up in bubbles, which shows that his bubbles are able to literally lift up massive and heavy objects. Nothing necessarily small. He can pick up massive objects. So he's able to do stuff like that, which means that the bubble is probably incredibly durable to be able to survive Shigaraki's decay, different debris that is definitely hitting the bubbles, because you gotta imagine, these buildings, they're coming down. Like, this is from a previous arc. You see Wash down here. He's using the bubble to float people. You know for a fact that these buildings coming down are creating ash shards, like different particles and everything flying everywhere, and you know that stuff is going to hit a bubble. But for the sheer fact that none of the bubbles probably popped, it lets you know that it's incredibly durable. So, I'm willing to extend the fact that this makes sense that the bubble survived, but then it brings up everything else, like, holy crap, how strong is Wash's freaking bubble? Like, seriously, it's a god bubble. It literally is, like, that bubble is absolutely tanky to be able to have no damage whatsoever while Edgeshot's carrying it, and then being able to survive stuff that Shigaraki was doing in the previous war arc. Just, holy crap. That blows my mind a little bit. So yeah, you see why I'm saying the man might be one of the tankiest characters of the entirety of, My Hero Academia. Like, legit, imagine if the man got actually, like, a regen quirk on top of that. Holy crap, the man wouldn't probably die. But okay, let's push jokes aside. I'm half serious on the whole Wash stuff. Let's talk about this chapter, okay? So, getting past the bakugou stuff, because I don't want to get into it. Let's talk about the really good stuff of this chapter. Mirko, and seeing her go headfirst up against Shigaraki, and actually losing another limb. You literally see here how her leg gets bitten right here. I'll zoom in for you guys. You see her leg literally get bit by one of Shigaraki's, hand tendril things. It forms a mouth, bites Mirko's leg off, and then she becomes very feral here. And you see Shigaraki, he staggers a little bit after getting hit. He kind of relays that Bakugou did the damage, and then Mirko just goes straight feral, savage, charging in to attack Shigaraki, which, okay. Mirko has always been probably one of my favorite characters ever since really her introduction, because her fights in general are very raw, very savage. Like, if you think about the war arc, okay, since I was talking about, Wash here in the war arc, her in the war arc was absolutely ridiculous. She fought multiple, almost high-ends, just fighting them off by herself, which was a feat that was unbelievable, because we saw how strong, a high-end was against Endeavor. So seeing Mirko just, fighting multiple at once by herself was something that was absolutely shocking. She is 100% a gifted fighter, and the fact that she has lost 3 limbs now, and she is still fighting like a savage animal and doing a lot of damage, really is kind of ridiculous. It's like, holy crap. Mirko she's epic. She's amazing. She's an incredible character in terms of fighting power, etc. Imagine how insane she would be if she had a slight regeneration quirk. Just imagine how ridiculous of a fighter she would be. It makes you think. But, anyways, let's move on. So basically, with the fight, you get to see, Togata here. He tries to intervene and block, Shigaraki's eyes, and I'm gonna keep it real with you with Togata for a second, okay? I've been needing to talk about this, but it needs to be said, okay? I don't like how Togata's been utilized in this fight. And, hear me out, okay? Yes, Shigaraki is the final villain. Okay, well, we know this. It's understandable. It's been built up literally since the beginning of the story. That's not a problem that Izuku has to be the one to bring him down. That doesn't bug me whatsoever. The problem I have, though, is that Togata as a character has been built up basically since the Overhaul arc, and we saw him fight off against Overhaul by himself before Night Eye fought off as well, and we saw just Togata he went in, Togata went in and fought Overhaul for a long time with a quirk that he had to put so much time and effort into being able to master. And everything about his fighting style was incredible. And when you think about Togata as a character, and how he fights, he would definitely be a great character to fight someone like Shigaraki. At least stall him. To stall Shigaraki, because Shigaraki's entire presence as a fighter is kind of like strength and decay. So you would think like, oh, this would be kind of a perfect fight for Tokita to be able to at least stall. And in my headcanon, I'm not saying this had to happen, but my headcanon was like, Tokita would be like one of the last lines of defense before Izuku arrives, because soon as, Izuku arrives, Tokita's sitting there fighting him off and defending, everybody else against Shigaraki, and then, he's about to die, maybe similar to Night Eye, but Izuku comes in, something like that. It would be pretty cool. It would, to kind of see Tokita that's been built up to be kind of like the one that could have had one for all. It would have been cool to see him facing off against Shigaraki like that for a long period of time by himself. That would have been an absolutely incredible moment because of the build-up there. But the way he's been used, especially in this fight, he's not really doing much. I don't expect him to do heavy damage to him. That's not what I'm expecting. I'm expecting stalling. And just, I don't like how he's just like, oh, let me just cover your eyes. That's it. That's all he's kind of doing. And it's just like, he's not really doing anything. He's just there within the chapter. He has really no presence. And Mirko is obviously outshining him, which is fine. There's no problem there. But I feel like Tokita as a character has not been utilized properly, at least in this fight. That's my 2 cents on the matter, especially since he got his, his quirk back. Okay, with that out of the way, though, one thing that does also need to be mentioned is the fact that this man was staggered. So, yeah, let's talk about that. So, Shigaraki himself, he literally says he was staggered. Like, he was staggered after Mirko basically kicked him. She lost her limb, and she went feral, etc. He talks about how he's staggered, and he starts to wonder what happened, and obviously it was when he was going up against Bakugou. Bakugou did damage to him. Okay, fine. The problem, though, is that Shigaraki has basically taken like 6 to 7 cruise missiles to the face. Like, we saw it against Star and Stripe. When Shigaraki's fighting Star and Stripe, he took multiple missiles to the face, basically head on, and it didn't really do much. Yes, he regenerated, but he still took a lot of damage, and he was still able to move just fine. But the fact that 7 missiles did less damage than basically Bakugou / a kick from Mirko just makes me question a lot in terms of power scaling. It's like, why is Bakugou's damage even more so than that? But once again, you could chalk it up to regen, but it's still questionable why 7 missiles did less damage than, a kick. But, okay, anyways. I love Mirko in this chapter. She is an absolute gem of a character. Every time she's usually in a chapter, she's absolutely just steals the show. She steals every panel. Like, look at this. You could tell that Horikoshi-sensei, if there's anything that he truly loves drawing, at least in the latest chapters, it's Mirko's fighting style. He absolutely loves these type of designs with her multiple kicks, etc. You can just see the stylized panel here. It's absolutely gorgeous. I really love how he does panels in Mirko, and he demonstrates how fast she is, how savage she is, strong, and I've always loved her absolute eye design. Like, the eye design for Mirko, like you can see it down here, I've always loved this eye design. It stands out to me in comparison to other characters. It's very sharp. It just adds this intensity to her very character. And yeah, I think he's done a good job with Mirko, at least keeping her consistent. It's sad, though, that she has to lose multiple limbs just to be able to fight. And before everything is said and done, she's probably just going to turn out to be just a chicken nugget like, Kaneki was from Tokyo Ghoul. But, yeah, it's, this is an interesting chapter, and we even get to see old Shigaraki reappearing right here, and I'm happy about this. This is good. This is really good, and let me explain why this is good. I personally am one of those people that have not liked the change and shift of, like, Shigaraki that's kind of lost himself and became more all-for-one-ish with his new body, new quirk, etc. And yes, we saw them fighting and all that, and they were merging, but I did not like that because it kind of undermined everything with Shigaraki's character, what was being set up for many, many arcs. It's just like, why are we just having basically all for one 2.0 when Shigaraki could become his own character? And seeing Shigaraki's old personality kind of resurfacing here, basically showing anger and upset that, they're trying to save Bakugou, but he wasn't saved, it's a very good moment. I think, once again, as I've been saying, that when it comes to My Hero Academia, Horikoshi-sensei's strongest points, at least for writing standpoint at this point in time, is definitely the villains. He makes really good villains. Even All For One's an interesting villain. Yes, he is very basic, but he's a good villain when you think about everything. And I think that seeing old Shigaraki come back is going to be great. I'm liking this. I hope that this continues and we get more of this in the upcoming chapters. But, yeah, that's my overall feelings on the chapter My Hero. Just needed to be talked about. But with that out of the way, thank you so much. If you enjoyed the video, do leave me a like. Leave me a comment as well if you tell me you disagreed or agreed with my thoughts. But with that, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.